You do not want to throw the hands if you can throw good words first to de-escalate a situation. The ultimate warrior is the one to get his opponent to concede without any violence.
Hey there, I'm Stefan Kesting, and this is the Strenuous Life Podcast. I am really looking forward to this podcast, guys. I've got Kevin Dillon, a retired police officer of 25 years on the line, and now a professional police combatives instructor. And I think there's so many places we go with this conversation that's totally relevant to us in civilian life as well as anybody listening who's in the law enforcement area. But why don't we start, Kevin? First of all, welcome to the show. But what was the scariest incident that you ever had in your 25 years of being a cop?
The scariest incident is kind of hard to measure. I was also a SWAT operator for 15 years. And I was what they call a team leader. That means I would go in with 10 operators in the stack. And we've done hostage rescues when we had to sneak the people out the backyard, when we've had to take out the suspect immediately. And I've hit multiple houses. That never really caused me a lot of fear. Throwing hands with people never really caused me a lot of fear because I was inoculated, which is important to understand the difference between martial arts and combatives and true experience. The one incident that flashbanged me a little bit was my own fault. We had a call for service of a young girl that was trying to be abducted by an emotionally disturbed person. He was trying to drag this little 12-year-old, I think she was younger than that, 8 or 10-year-old, he's trying to drag her into the woods. And softball players run over and they grab onto the girl and they're actually having a tug of war. They take the little girl, and luckily they rescued her, but now I have to look for the suspect. I end up locating him on a golf course. And he's kind of looking around, and I'm like, hey, listen, man, don't run on me. Listen, I'm at the time, I'm young. I said, I'll run you down. I said, we just got to talk about what happened. Well, he runs, and I'm like, at first, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because he looks like he was like, at the time, 55 years old, like what I am now. And so I run him down, but actually, I just put him to the ground gently because I really didn't want to hurt the guy. And sure enough, I had actually 2 golfers. Officer, can we help you? I said, no, man, I'm all set, but thank you. But as soon as they left, he almost grabs my waist with one hand, almost does a one-handed push-up, jumps up, throws me down on the ground, mounts me. Now he's going for the 2-hand choke with everything he has. At that time, I knew, I'm like, hey, listen, this guy's all business here. I have to change the way I'm operating. So I had to go to business real quick, real efficiently and effectively. So I took control of the situation, and, we took him into custody and things of that nature. But I learned a huge lesson, how quickly that guy turned on me. I was very lucky because I've been studying martial arts and combatives since I was 14 years old. Any other officer would have had a significant, difficult time. I didn't realize it at the time. The guy was so strong because he was a bricklayer. And he was emotionally disturbed, so he didn't feel the pain. The pain synapses was obviously damaged, so there's no pain. So that was a scary situation. But again, why it's so important to be skilled at your profession, because you just never know when it's going to turn on you.
So how did the inoculation come about? Was that just all your martial arts training prior to that point?
See, inoculation, a lot of people don't realize, if you have stress, you want to inoculate stress, you have to experience stress. You just can't inoculate something if it's not prevalent. Fear. If you want to inoculate fear, you have to learn to address and experience the fear. So one of my first combative instructors was a Green Beret, Vietnam vet, hardcore guy. And I was learning traditional martial arts in a school and everything else like that, but learning with him was different because to him it was pure combatives. All about understanding what it's like to be in a really physical engagement. So that's what inoculated me, because I think he really just called his buddies and say, hey, come on over, I got this knucklehead, you can beat his butt all Saturday, But we had a wonderful relationship, and he taught me a significant amount about the true See, there are martial arts, combatives, but sometimes fights are purely violent and aggressive.
So how do you train for that? How do you train for that place that transcends the technique? Is it's putting yourself in that situation where you're feeling the fear and you're feeling the pressure, like you were saying?
It's a good question, because you really do. And now here's the balance. In law enforcement, you can create. It's almost like, Stefan, you want to learn to create and train the midbrain. not the prefrontal cortex where logic reasoning. You want to be able to create that neurological program that the brain can file, access, and go to work. Now, law enforcement does a very good job trying it, but just throwing somebody in a boxing ring and having each other beat the hell out of each other is not inoculation. All that can teach people is experiencing defeat before you get into the street. You really do have to teach them what controlled aggression looks like, and that could be done very much through scenario-based exercises. I'll give you a quick example, if I may. We trained a class. This was maybe a 3-day close quarter fighting technique program. So you have to teach them the technique first and work the technique so they understand the physical skills, as you know. Then, once they teach it, you have to start to drill it. Once you drill it and they do their proficiency, then you have to add the realism. You're not going to do this against another uke or another student. You're going to do it with somebody probably not even your size, not even your age. So you need to role play. That means your partner has to completely act out that role. Now, you don't have to go punching people in the face to understand what real fighters look like. So we did this little study, and it's not scientifically proven, but we took the heart rate monitors, the wristwatch values, and put it on this officer's wrist. So then we pick them out randomly. Oh, listen, I need to light someone up really bad here quick. You don't mind if I pick on you, do you, Jackie? And I just kept walking. So automatically, I know her heart rate's going to start accelerating. Then she's already been given a skill. She's practiced a skill. So now we have to create it in the environment, the context of what she's going to perform it. So what do? Boom, I just go right to work on her, grabbing onto her, acting out the role of pure aggression, not punching her in the face or anything else like that. Throw her down to the ground. She executes a one-legged takedown, takes me down. That 1 8-second drill, Stefan, her heart rate went from 125 to 175 beats in 8 seconds. That's training the midbrain, because during that quick 10 minutes, she had no time for rational thought. She could not think, if I do a one-legged takedown, I'll drop this guy this way. No, it became stimulus response. That means under high-stress situation, boom, I see the leg, pow, I take the leg. And that's how you start to inoculate it. Where police departments are getting stung throughout the country is they're throwing them into a boxing ring and just having people go at it. That is not the way to inoculate it, because all you're doing is sending people out with concussions and torn retina, if that makes sense.
I imagine that a lot of cops coming into the program, who are just new police officers, are thinking that there's some kind of magic set of police techniques that they're going to learn, right? They're going to learn wrist lock 1 and headlock escape 2 and arresting technique number 3. And that's going to be sufficient, that just knowing the technique and not learning to use it under stress is going to be all they need to know. Do you run into that a lot, or is that mentality started?
It's a complete misnomer of our whole culture. The average police department, I don't even think it's the average. We'll say the average police department gives their officers maybe 4 hours of physical skills training a year. You're a martial artist. What can you learn in 4 hours a year?
Maybe a couple of techniques if you're lucky, and hopefully you have to use them pretty soon after those 4 hours, and not 11 months and 3 weeks after you've done that 4 hours of training.
That's the fact of the issue. It's almost like I'm a golfer, a wannabe golfer, I want to say, and I try to make this analysis. All right, say you give me 80 hours in basic training, and that was like 7 years ago, and now you take me out once a year to play golf for 4 hours. Do you think I can learn to hit that tiny little white ball straight down the fairway? Of course not.
And it's not a life and death situation. If you miss that white ball, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to lose a bet. You're not going to end up getting pounded in the street.
Yeah, the white ball's not even hitting me back.
Yeah.
The only stress I'm experiencing is somebody waiting to tee off. So we are gripped with the false sense of reality that thinking we can train people once a year for 4 to 8 hours a year and expect them to develop skills to fight somebody that is not in their weight class, not in their age bracket. They could be, plus law enforcement has kit. They're wearing 25 extra pounds. They have use of force policies and procedures. They have oversight, limited amount of training. And still, after all the controversy within the last 8 years, you think all the physical skills training would skyrocket? They have not. They try to replace it with de-escalation training. De-escalation training is huge. We need it. But everybody needs communication today, not just police. But that's the true facts. And here's the other thing, if I can, Steph. Law enforcement also, they are not looking at the data. They're teaching stuff out of their heads. Well, you know, a lot of fights go to the ground, so we're gonna do ground fighting. Oh, you think so, huh? Now tell me how they go to the ground. Do I fall on top of him? Does he fall on top of me? Do I put him in a guard? Does he put me in a guard? Does he tackle me? Do I tackle him? I said, you have to understand, you have to look at the data. Collect the use of force reports. You'll find that 90% of the times when police use force, they're trying to arrest and control somebody. So why does 95% of your curriculum deal with deadly force encounters when your 95% is this? So they're not looking at the data. They don't look at what's really being done. They're teaching things out of the theory, if that makes sense.
Sure. So what would you say the minimum, if you were king of the universe, or at least king of the police departments, otherwise known as a chief, what would you think the minimum number of hours per year of physical combatives training should be for a patrol officer? It might be different if you're doing a different role, if you're driving a desk, but if you're out on the streets doing patrols, you know, possibly arresting people, how many hours a year or a week or a month should they be doing?
Well, here's a good analysis, because there's really no hard and fast numbers. You know, if somebody asked me, I would say, well, at least give them 4 hours a month, 4 hours every other month. I said, because it's a perishable skill, and there's so many variables. And I give an example. There's still the issue of size differential. I don't care if you're a professional MMA fighter, but if you're only 135 pounds and you're fighting somebody's 225, that's the difference. True or false?
Yeah.
That's another thing. Oh, with the MMA fighting, we're teaching our cops MMA fighting. I'm going to get shit at me, right? I said, so what you're going to teach once a year, they do 4 to 8 hours a week. You're going to teach them to fight their way. Is that what you're trying to tell me? And that's true. Real quick story. I'm in France teaching one time, right? And they said, Kevin, you must take down, his name was Stefan. He goes, but he's a world champion boxer. I said, sure, I'll take him down. I said, all I need you to do is go in front of him, give him a quick little shove, a little tap in the face, and then call him out on something, goofing around with him. They said, okay. So they go, okay, Stefan. They push him in the front. I came up right behind him. Bam! Took him right down. Then we do this. 1, 2, 3, au revoir! And we all run away, you know? Had a lot of fun. He gets up. I said, hey, man, you okay? What did you do to me? So I stopped the class. I said, do you think for 1 minute I'm going to stand in front of a world champion boxer? I said, that's how you teach it, law enforcement. Because no matter what, I'm still only a 200-pounder against somebody who's a 225-pound professional fighter. So you're giving cops 4 hours a year, 8 hours a year to try to fight them in their own game. You're out of your mind. That make sense?
Yeah, it really does. Now, even if you had a boxing curriculum or a jiu-jitsu curriculum or a combatives curriculum, as you pointed out earlier, there's a whole lot of kit involved. I mean, the average cop is carrying a gun and handcuffs and a taser and pepper spray and a notebook and body armor. And I imagine that in this, if you're a SWAT guy, you're carrying another 20 pounds on top of that. So that must change the game as well significantly.
Well, it should. Well, first of all, yes, it does. But then again, you think it should. Well, the other day, I'm like, Kev, you're in state. Would you come teach our SWAT training? I'm like, yeah, man, I'd love to. So I go there, and they're all slicked down, T-shirts and shorts. I'm like, well, man, tell me, doing jiu-jitsu and stuff. I'm like, I love this stuff. It's all cool. But tell me when you're going to start your SWAT training. Oh, we're doing it. I said, no, you're not. You're doing basic jiu-jitsu. I said, first of all, nobody's wearing kit. I didn't know you guys don't wear full gear. Oh, yes, we do. Oh, I didn't know you would have like thigh rigs. Oh, yes, we do. I didn't know you didn't wear a helmet. We do. I didn't know you carried M4. Oh, yes, we do. I said, then what the hell's that got to do with your job performance? Tell me what officer can perform that maneuver wearing full kit 100%. Nobody can. I said, so it's a misnomer. You're just doing what you want to do.
What kind of maneuvers are we talking about that they were doing in the training as opposed to
say you're doing say I'm an officer on the ground, right? And he's doing a two-hand choke. They're actually doing triangle leg locks. I said, so you're going to wrap that leg around him, grab an arm bar, and pull him down when he's wearing 100%. They can't get off their backs practically like human turtles. And you think they're going to do this leg lock with, a triangular lock with their legs? What are you doing? If you said, Kev, we're just kind of warming up and having fun, team building, I would have said, that's cool, you're good to go. I said, but let me tell you something. The very first thing an attorney's going to do, they're going to get your training records. And they're going to very easily say that your training has absolutely nothing to do with your job description. So it's because of your deliberate indifference that now the officers did not have the skills they had available. Another one, a buddy goes, oh, we did police ground fighting. I said, no, you didn't. Yes, we did. I said, no, you didn't. I said, every single person's wearing T-shirt and shorts. Tell me what's that got to do with police work? Well, I said, they're not wearing their gun belts. They're not wearing the uniforms. I said, they can't shrimp and move like that when they're wearing their gun belts. I said, first of all, they don't even know what it feels like to shrimp when you got a full kit on. So I said, you got to train them at least with their full kit to understand their mobility and capabilities. Plus, every time you have a grounded combative with a police officer, there's a gun involved now, too. So you got to put the gear on if you're going to train police work. That's all there is to it.
Well, back in the day, like a long time ago, I remember there were some Brazilians that I was associated with. They'd fight MMA once in a while. But because the training for MMA wasn't very highly developed, the entire extent of their MMA training would be to take the gi off and just do rolling with a T-shirt. So they weren't punching each other. They weren't even wearing the gloves. And they weren't doing takedowns. They were just doing grappling on the ground without a gi. And although that's probably a valuable, well, not probably, that's definitely a valuable skill. You have to be able to grapple without a gi if you're going to be doing MMA. There are a few additional things that you should be doing that are a little bit more sport specific. So what you're really talking about is sort of sport specificity. It's not a sport, obviously, but training the way that you're actually going to be doing, spending most of your training time doing kind of sort of what you're going to be doing in real life.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, you need to know how to strike. But striking for police work is different, too. Like, a lot of California PDs were getting rid of Krav Maga. I said, what? Let me tell you, what? Too many face punching? Oh, how'd you know? I said, you don't get rid of it. It's got some great material. It's got some good stuff. I said, but you have to understand, you're teaching all deadly force encounters. You start pounding people and elbowing in the face, that's an officer's survival. That means all the techniques and tactics have to fit the totality of circumstances. That's why all the cops were getting sued and getting disciplined. I said, you have to have striking in there, but it has to fit law enforcement. See, in law enforcement, every time you hit 1, 2, 3 times, that's 3 uses of the force. And you need to articulate and identify why you hit 3 times. So you just can't train an officer to pound, 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 because now the training alone is teaching to use excessive use of force. Getting back to our golf analogy, it's almost like giving me a driver and telling me to teach the damn game, play the whole game with the driver. You can't do it. I said, put it in its proper context. They should know how to strike. They have to. They should know, and they have to know how to do ground combatives for law enforcement, not for a sport. And they have to know how to do takedowns. And they should look at all the use of force reports. This is not 100% hard and fast, but I would guarantee it. Let's talk another. Big city got into a problem with multiple officers fighting with one guy. I said, guys, I could probably much tell you, if I look into your use of force reports, I bet I could find up to 50 to 60% involved multiple officers, or even say 40% involved multiple officers fighting one guy. I could then almost guarantee you, I could go to your training records and find nothing pertaining to multiple officers, one suspect encounters. I said, that's how the legal world will look at you. You have to look at the game tapes and determine the proper techniques, at least to a good rounded degree.
Because multiple people reefing on one suspect, if they don't know what they're doing, is pretty much a guarantee for disaster. Like, somebody's going to tear an arm off or asphyxiate the poor bugger, even if he's guilty. But, I mean, of course, that's not for you to determine at that point. But multiple people trying to pull in different ways is, that's how they used to execute people in the Middle Ages, pulling them in different directions with horses.
Yeah, I call it the Nylon Pig Pile. I'm like, guys, if it's foreseeable, it's preventable. That means if you don't know, an attorney's going to come in through a production request or freedom of information request and look at your training records. Then they're going to get all your use of force, and they're going to simply point out to the jury or in a deposition, say, obviously, officer, we have determined that in 38% of the times it involved multiple officers. Could you tell us where the lesson plan is pertaining to multiple officers, one suspect encounters? Oh, we don't do that. And they're going to say, well, you should have known because the data was readily available.
And now you got a guy with a dislocated shoulder who's suing the department for $500,000.
Exactly. And I don't blame these officers. I blame our whole profession. The 4 hours a year crap has to change. Not looking at the data, analyzing the curriculum appropriately has to change. We have to. I mean, it's not hard and fast because you still have to deal with maybe the guy that tried to kill me, choking me. I mean, what I had to use there is called a weapon of necessity, which was my portable radio at the time, because it went from an arrested and control situation to a deadly force encounter. Now, if I just hit him with my portable when it was during the arrest and control, that would be excessive and unreasonable. But him turning around, throwing me down, mounting all my equipment and choking me with everything he has, that was the only option I had, which was reasonable. So now, for example, in a situation like that, you might not have lesson plans available. There's too many variables. But you still should have at least 80% consistent with what officers are regularly doing.
Now, just for the people who are not familiar with it, can you take us through sort of a standard continuum of force progression? Like starting from you and I having a dispute to you shooting me repeatedly with your handgun. There are a few steps in between. Can you take us through what those steps would be for a typical police department or for typical SOPs?
Yes. And first of all, there's really continuums are just almost like a teaching guide, because many violent encounters don't involve a continuum of that. For example, you'll have many people writing in their policy that deadly force will only be used as a last resort. No, wrong. It might be your first resort and first option. If I walk up to a car, hey man, license and registration, boom, and he pulls a gun on me, bang, bang, and I respond back, that's my first option. That's not my last resort. It was the only option available, so there was no continuum to be had. Force continuums, yeah, there's verbal, first there's presence, then there's verbal persuasion, then there's soft countermeasures, then there's hard countermeasures, and then there's oleorism capsicum, then there's baton, then there's taser, then there's deadly force. But they do not move in a continuum. You want it to be almost like I want to de-escalate situations, but it might go, here's another one. Say it's deadly force. Hey, man, put the knife down. Put the knife down. And he throws the knife down. I don't want to die. I'm getting tired. I'm tired. Get away from the knife, buddy. Get away from the knife. And then he comes at me. It went from a deadly force. Now it goes down. Now the threat is no longer there, so now I have to resort to maybe a countermeasure or a takedown to control this person. So continuums were brought up in the 70s and 80s, but they're really not involved in. Canada might be different. They still might have a continuum base, but I don't think they do. They have more. They're either circular, they're different matrix to show options available, but not a stair-stepping continuum.
So it's more a menu of options, and you're trying to pick from somewhere in the right area of the menu. In the example that you just mentioned there, where we went from a deadly force encounter, because the guy had a knife, to just him running towards you in kind of a stupid tackle type situation, that's a really hard situation for an officer, because their level of stress is at 10 out of 10, because they're getting ready to shoot somebody, and now they're being asked to step down. I think coming back down that staircase is, of arousal, right? The level of stress that you're feeling and the amount of adrenaline that's flowing in your system must be a lot harder to go down than it is to go up in the moment.
It's 100% accurate. In all this crap about, he shoot an unarmed man. Really? Have you ever seen an unarmed man pummel the hell out of somebody and kill him? Yes. So this fallacy about an unarmed man is no longer a threat is purely political, a joke. All totality of circumstances are involved. There was a police officer last month, punched in the face, fell down, hit his head, and died on one strike by an unarmed person. We even had a preceding president that accused officers of shooting people unarmed. Well, when they're pummeling the hell out of you and they're twice your size and you feel you start to go unconscious, what else do you plan? What else should you do? So it is very difficult to make those split-second decisions from a deadly force. Somebody's going to threaten your life 1 second, and then they expect you to make clear cognitive decisions within milliseconds. It's the human performance factors is something that the politicians like to leave out.
Now, earlier you were talking about de-escalation sort of as a separate component from the combatives aspect. So you said de-escalation was important, but that it's also kind of overhyped as a be all and end all solution. So would you say that is the theory that you should be able to de-escalate any situation verbally? Is that what you're actually being told? That's ludicrous.
It is completely ludicrous. It's in many of these recommendations from different organizations, I don't know if they've lost their reality or the reality of the street. Even in past cases, officers have been de-escalating things since time began. So it's nothing new. What they have not been doing pretty much is articulating in the reports pertaining to what the de-escalations were. Everyone in our culture today, we all need better communication training. We're a technology age now. USA Today reports a lack of civility and bullying in the workplace. Psychology Today, the lack of civility in bullying. Washington Post, lack of civility in bullying. Harvard Business Review, bullying. I could go on and on. It's a culture of lack of civility right now. So we all need better communication training. Officers today, sure, 100%. We have been teaching de-escalation training since we wrote our combative program. You do not want to throw the hands if you can throw good words first to de-escalate a situation. The ultimate warrior is the one to get his opponent to concede without any violence. So now it's more important to really give them in. It needs to be integrated with combatives, not separate. So it's almost like in a combative situation, the combatives or arrest and control, whatever, should be first you teach the techniques, all right, then once they got and you drill for proficiency, then it's got to be scenario-based and stimulus-based. When you do these scenarios, you should have also instructed them in de-escalation strategies and techniques and have them attempt to deploy those in scenario exercises. Half of them should determine, okay, you did this, this, and that could work. So the student experiences a positive response. But you should have just as many, okay, none of that worked. Now he's standing up, he's taking his phone, he's putting it down, he's moving furniture around, he's starting to adjust his clothes, he's about to go. Now what are you going to do? Because your de-escalation did not work. So that's the big thing in law enforcement now. But then again, we are gripped with the false sense of reality. The way we teach, well, first we have baton over here, and then we have handcuffing over there, and then we have firearms over there, and we have de-escalation over there. No, it all needs to be completely integrated, including the communication, de-escalation. And also all the way up to report writing. What did you do to save the guy? And there are techniques that we teach them.
What would be an example of a de-escalatory technique? I don't know if it would apply to civilians, because obviously if I'm trying to de-escalate, I don't have the badge, I don't have the uniform, and I don't have the gun, and I don't have backup, and I don't have the threat of being able to lock you up. But sort of just a strictly police de-escalatory tactic, and then maybe a tactic for the rest of us who don't have the badge, the gun, and the backup.
Oh, human communication regardless. It's here's a technique. This technique is called the redirection of a thought process. Now, have you ever heard the term, when you're very upset, you take a deep breath and count to 10?
Sure.
Now, they were trying to teach that to one agency, and I'm like, you got to be out of your mind. You're going to teach a cop to take a deep breath and count to 10? Hold on a second. I'm going to beat your, hold on a second. 4, 5. I'm like, the theory is that, first of all, you need to generate the oxygenated blood flow back up to the prefrontal cortex where your logic and reasoning is. One, with oxygenated blood, take a deep breath. The other is thought to create neural circuitry. What do you need to do mathematics? You need circuitry. So by forcing them to count to 10 forces the blood and the circuitry back. So it is a sound technique, but not for law enforcement. Law enforcement would have to, hold on, buddy. Let me get back to you in 1 second.
Yeah, I need a timeout here.
What you should do is this, almost like take a deep breath, get the oxygen up there, and instead of counting to 10, you think, what is the best way to make this guy happy? What would make this guy comply? What would make this guy understand me better? That's rational thought. That is the same thing, same objective, so to speak. The other one is the redirection of a thought process. All right, when they're angered, their limbic brain is taken over. All right, that means there's no rational thought. By redirecting that thought process, it actually forces the oxygenated blood up to the logical brain. So here's a quick one. This came back from one of my officers. This is one of my quotes that I took. I think his name was Bjork. Effective training, is not to be measured by the speed of acquisition, nor by the level of performance reached. Effective training is only to be measured in post-training tasks in the real-world environment. Now, that was out of one of Richard Smith's book on human performance and learning. But that's it. So you want to know, if I've taught you these techniques, does it work on the street? So I got one back from one of my officers. He goes, Kev, man, it worked like a charm. I said, please tell me the facts. He goes, I walked into this 911 call, and the guy was like, what do you want here? You son of a... shot my son. So now he walked into pure aggression. So he goes, sir, I am so sorry to hear about your son. And he goes, but we had nothing to do with that. He goes, Kev, I saw on his table. See, if you go into somebody's house and you look around, you can see very quickly what has value to them. Correct? Yeah. It's usually on display. Well, he had this Christmas set out on display. The officer had one just like it. So the guy goes, this is son of a... You guys... He goes, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, though, but is that a Motel Christmas set? Yes, it is. He goes, I'm sorry. Before we... Can I ask you a quick question? What? I have the same thing, and I cannot set it up. It's taking me 3 hours. So the guy... Well, you got to wire that underneath there. He goes, but I've done that. I just can't get it up to the houses. He goes, no, you got to put it through here, up the center, around there. And he goes, Kev, first I had to stop my jaw from dropping because I could see all the blood come back to his face. He goes, within 10 minutes, he is shaking my hand saying, I have no ill will towards you. See, we teach officers, guys, you're the tip of the iceberg, but the issue is under the water. You need to get to the issue. So they need to have rational thought before anything is obtained. So that's called redirection of the thought process, for a positive mentality to try to redirect their oxygen before. Here's a couple things real too quick, Steph. Always address the emotion first, then the issue, not the issue first. And that's a key component for victory too. Because I teach, I just got done teaching Delta. I teach civilians all the time. See, communication is communication.
Do you do marriage counseling? Because it sounds like some of those techniques could be used there as well.
Oh, yes. It doesn't work for my wife. I mean, she says to me, don't try that pull prefrontal cortex bullshit on me.
Why is there? Why do you? Maybe there's research here. Why is the divorce rate so high in the police community? I mean, I imagine that night shifts and stress can't help, but has it actually been studied as to why the epidemic of divorce is so high in the police community?
I really don't know if it's really different than the community at large anyway. I mean, according to some of the data, it's like 50% of the people are going to get divorced within the first 7 years. And so it's a good question. It's not my expertise. I don't know if it's any different than the general population, but even if it was, I would probably venture to reflect on a few things. One, officers, when they come home after being on the job, they go into, this came from Dr. Kevin Dillon, which is a brilliant speaker, researcher. I love him dearly. And he goes, say, for example, these officers are working during a shift. They're in a heightened state of a parasympathetic arousal. For example, 752, hey, did you see the guy with the red shirt on? He ran behind that building. Get some more of your units over there. So many times they're geared up. So when they come home, they don't come to homeostasis. They go down below homeostasis, almost to a parasympathetic response. So now, say, for example, in Steph, I bet you've done the same thing. You ever come home and the wife goes, hey, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? You want chicken or steak? I don't know, whatever. Do you want to go out? Do you want to stay in? Oh, I don't care. You want to go to the garage? I don't care. You're at a parasympathetic modality. So it's almost like officers go in this up and down modality, have to learn to have that balance.
Kind of an adrenal exhaustion type scenario.
Yeah, I think it's applicable to anybody because we've all been in those states. So in that situation, that's why so many domestics occur during dinner time. Both people are coming home. People are tired. They don't want to make decisions. They're exhausted. I don't want to make a decision. So that's how fights occur.
It would also be the time of day when people start drinking.
Yeah. So it's either dinner time or when? At the end of the evening.
Well, I'm obviously a firefighter. I think you know that. I remember it took a couple of years for me to figure out that my then wife was much, much more unreasonable after my second night shift. Of course, what it really meant is that I was way more tired, and the little things would blow up. But it was always, why is she so unreasonable after my second night shift? Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't entirely her.
Well, we don't know these things a lot. There's another book called The Relaxation Response, which is excellent. And it talks about any of us, when we come home, it's almost like give yourself 10 minutes, find yourself a spot in the house, deep breathing exercises and visualization. 5 to 10 minutes a day will reduce your heart disease by 50%. Not only that, it gives you the capability, say, hon, give me a few minutes, breathe, exercise a little bit, give you your time, come on back, and you need that time to try to develop that. One buddy of mine says, Kev, I'm getting married for the third time. Hey, God bless you, right? And he goes, well, I realize if this doesn't work, I just might have to think it may be me. I said, I want you to focus on some of these techniques, bud. You can't blame the wives all the time. Or wives, you can't blame us all the time.
Well, you can contemplate that living in El Salvador on 1/10 of a pension if this doesn't work. Well, let's go from failed marriages and relaxation response to one of your collaborations. I didn't realize until I did a bit of research that you'd worked with Dave Grossman, the author of On Killing and On Combat, which are some amazing books.
He's a brilliant, he's another guy that is as humble as a day is long. I met him in '99 and at a SWAT conference and hit it off right off the bat. And in '06, when I had my 25 years, the lockup program, which means Law Officers Combat Kinetics, for unarmed panoply. Panoply means the complete shining array of a warrior. So I wrote the curriculum for the state of Connecticut in 2000. And we constantly try to track, trend, and determine what's effective, what's retainable, what's working for the officers. And by 2006, I'm like, this is really taken off really well. So I decided to take it on the road, for example. And so Dave was one of the first guys, that definitely took me under his wing. And next thing you know, he goes, hey, Kev, we became good friends. He got a book coming out called On Combat. If I send it to you, would you mind taking a look at it? And I want you as one of my advisors. I said, I don't know, Dave, I'm kind of a busy guy, but I guess I can look at it for you, right? So he is as humble, as wonderful as the day is long. And he was one of these guys that was really quick to take me under his wing to the point that for the last few years, we do speaking engagements together too.
The book, the On Killing book, which is his first book, or his first big breakthrough book, that was, I think, a really big revelation to a lot of people, especially the story about how few people actually discharged their firearms in the earlier wars. When they measured it in the First World War versus the Second World War versus the Korean War versus the Vietnam War, and how much desensitization and training actually had to happen in order to get people to fire their bloody weapon when they were in combat, because the natural tendency was to not fire your weapon. That blows me away every time I read about it.
And if you want to look at the culture of violence right now, we are using the same simulators. These kids are using these same simulators on a regular basis. Not only that, the movies are desensitizing them like what we saw in 1970s was R-rated, would be X-rated right now on regular TV. True or false?
I think the stuff they're showing right now on regular TV would have definitely got you an X rating in the 70s, both for the sex and the violence.
Right, the decapitations, they're extremely graphic as you can get. Whereas, so now they're completely desensitized. I think Dave just came out with another book about the assassination of the generation, when it refers to many of these, the poor kids in Florida yesterday.
The school shooting with 17 dead.
School shootings, Las Vegas, it's beyond control right now.
There was some research that I read about, and I didn't have the time to look into it deeply, but it suggested that, if I'm trying to remember it now, I don't have anyone to call this up on the screen as I'm talking about it, unfortunately. That'll be when the podcast gets really big, and I can be just like Joe Rogan and have the automated research assistant. But I think it was that kids who played solo violent games had, that really inhibited social skills. But if they were doing sort of violent games together, if they were like, hey, let's go cruise around in Grand Theft Auto together, and they were working as a team, then that actually had less of a negative effect than playing these games by themselves. Have you heard anything about this or read anything about that?
There's a lot of research pertaining to it. It's almost like just playing video games is not 100% causation of. They have to have, obviously, the sociopathic tendencies. So I think the research is more that the violent games do not necessarily... Look at it, millions of kids play these violent games and are perfectly healthy young kids. I think it's the sociopathic kids that are completely isolated, that along with their sociopathic tendencies and the violent video games. But I don't think it's... Right now, research says that video games, I think healthy video games naturally, Grand Theft Auto is almost a degradation of society. I said those should be restricted anyway. I mean, just but what those games consist of. Mm-hmm. But video games now are proven to really enhance cognition, responses, and things of that nature. But I think it's one that isolated sociopathic behavior, along with the video games. But I don't think the video games per se is not strong enough to say that they cause it.
In terms of desensitization, Dan Carlin, who does the Hardcore History podcast, probably one of the best podcasts on the internet, even though it only comes out once every 6 months, recently did a piece on public torture and public executions. And he makes the argument that, yeah, kids are playing violent video games now, but we're not going to public hangings anymore, where you take the kids down in a picnic basket and you watch somebody thrash around at the end of a noose for 10 minutes, gagging and pissing themselves and their tongue hanging out. Or, if we go back 2,000 years, we're not going to the Roman arena for a grand old time of, hey, we got all these Thracian slaves in, so why don't we, make them fight each other and then we'll kill the remaining ones with boiling oil. These were, for the large part of human history, we had death and dismemberment and public torture all around us. And not that long ago, there were, a couple hundred years ago, there were public hangings still. So it makes you wonder if the effect of video games, maybe it's beginning to reverse that trend. Maybe the most peaceful we ever presented as a society was 20, 30 years ago, where there weren't the violent video games, there weren't public executions. So now we've gone from public torture to public executions to none of that. And now we're creeping back up maybe with video games again. But it still puts it in context. What's the last good hanging that you've been at?
Well, it's almost like what they're seeing now. They see it daily now. In the Hollywood arena, it's as realistic as you can get. Yeah. So, public executions would be once in how long their lifetime. But now they get it on a regular basis. It's almost, I think it's the same thing as the lack of civility in the workplace or in our society. Have you watched TV? How much is nasty, aggressive? Even the judge shows. A judge treat people like ultimate pieces of
garbage. So
now they're getting immersed with it to the point that this is what society is supposed to represent. You don't see too many anyway, family-orientated shows. Everything's got to be beeped out. These reality shows, when these girls act whatever to be this, and these guys act like whatever. It's just like, my girls get mad at me. I'm like, Dad, it's entertaining. I said, it's a degradation of society. That's what it's doing. I said, where are these family-orientated shows? I said, nothing. I said, all you guys watch are either they're toned out, beeped out, because of the vulgarities, listen, I like good movies just like anything else. But if you look at the immersion of it, one day I don't watch TV too much, but even my beloved History Channel's gone to crap. And the other day, the TV show was on. Within a regular primetime show, one hand gets sliced off, one head gets sliced off. The next show, I'm like, man, maybe I am becoming a prude or something like that. I said,
what show are you watching? I don't watch TV, so I must have missed this episode.
I don't even know these shows. I don't even watch them. But they were like either channel, primetime, NBC, whatever it might have been.
And as you point out, the realism of it is, my guilty pleasure in life is those the Marvel superhero movies. And when the next one comes out and there's, an alien spaceship crashing into the Empire State Building in New York City, it will pretty much look exactly as if an alien spaceship actually crashed into the Empire State Building in New York City. It will be essentially indistinguishable from reality. And if we wanted to CGI a hand getting chopped off, we could do that too. So the blurring between sort of reality and visual is becoming less and less distinguishable. I mean, in a little while, they'll be able to take a couple pictures of your face and make a whole movie about, the secret life of Kevin Dillon, how he was a super spy, basically James Bond crossed with Jason Bourne, crossed with, I don't know, Sylvester Stallone, and just create that completely from scratch, which will make actually evidence collection and all that from the police point of view really interesting, because you'll be able to visually create any proof that you want.
And that's almost a class when we talk about use of force analysis. Well, that's not what the video shows. I said, yeah, well, I saw somebody with a red cape flying through the world the other day, and that's what the video showed me too. Videos are distorted as soon as they come from the camera, depending whatever you look at it. And so that's why the video issues are so controversial.
Well, certainly it's changed firefighting. I mean, now you pull up at, a car accident, and in the old days, we just would have, done what we needed to do, and now you're doing what you need to do, and there's a circle of cell phones facing you. I mean, it keeps you honest. On the one hand, I think it actually raises standards, but it certainly can add to your stress. In addition to dealing with a scene, you're now worrying about the optics of what is this going to look like to the public, and I sure hope I don't screw up because it's going to be immortalized in video and featured on the internet in about 10 seconds. Look at this idiot making this idiotic decision. I can only imagine for police, it's way worse.
Yeah, and I actually teach officers as well as the private sector about how to deal with this. My people from the airline industry. For example, let's talk about the United case. Remember that one?
Yeah, where the guy got thrown off the plane?
Yeah. I said, now, the officers were not malicious in any intent, but their brains did not default back to proper training, obviously. Now, in their what do we do with all the cameras? I said, first of all, if you're going to physically extract somebody off an aircraft, don't you think everybody should get off the aircraft first? Well, why? Are you trying to hide something? No, not trying to hide anything. But if I'm bringing 2 officers on, equipped with sidearms and full gear, that might have to physically restrain somebody, do you think I want everybody on the aircraft that could be possibly threatened by maybe this guy jumping out and grabbing a gun? Now you have 130 hostages? I said, second of all, talk about the escalation. That is a situation that guy had no real capability of making rational thought. This wasn't criminal. This guy is now in crisis, all right? A complete breakdown. So, first of all, when you're in crisis, you're not going to be able to criminally prosecute somebody when the defense will simply say, this guy was in crisis. He didn't have any capability to making cognitive decisions. So I would have said, guys, everybody gets off the aircraft. Or first, let's get back to the cameras. I said, why don't you do this with the cameras? I said, you have to learn to use those to your advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we have passenger number B12 that we have to ask one person to exit the aircraft, but he has a funeral tomorrow or whatever it might be. We are offering a stipend. Is anybody else willing to be able to give up their seat? All on camera. Then you go back, sir, I am so sorry. Nobody else is willing. Unfortunately, we have to extract you. If he still refuses, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, everybody needs to exit the aircraft. Then you come in with a medical chair. You pick him up and you put him down. You strap him in. He was having a breakdown. Then you walk him out in a medical chair where everybody's going to see it and say, that poor guy is having a complete breakdown. So I said, you have to learn to use these to your advantage. Let's do a police one in your face, and say, hey, listen, thank you so much for doing that. Stand over here because you'll be out of the street and you'll get a much better angle. And maybe me and you can connect later on for I can see it and help us out. Boom. See, at first they're expecting you to be hostile. Don't. Use them as an ally. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that. I can't have you doing it there because you could get hit. Come on over here. So you have to learn to use it to what you want them to see. Don't worry about it. Now, if they come in your face, say, sir, you're coming really too close with that item to my face. You need to step back. But like anything else, they have to learn. These things have to be trained and exercises.
Well, certainly in your YouTube videos and in your writing, you've talked about how you can use civilians to your advantage. I mean, the story that we started out with you and the deadly force encounter, you did have offers of help from civilians. I think, in most situations, in most circumstances, most people are going to help you if you're not being demonstrably a douchebag.
Yes, 100%. I can go onto the internet and almost like weekly, you'll see an article pertaining to civilian helps police officer, civilian saves police officers. That's why we should treat everybody with courtesy and respect, because even a violent felon, you treat that person with respect, they are willing to do violence on your behalf. Not a hard and fast rule, I understand that. But that's why we have a substantial amount of evidence of our civilians jumping in, helping officers. Yeah, we do have certainly amount of evidence about people jumping against the officers as well. But collectively, there's so much more to substantiate that officers are assisted rather than attacked.
It must be 10 to 1.
Yes. You know, so I'm like, listen, I've had it both. I've had people help me, and I've had people jump in. Both. I understand that. But I've had 5 times more try to help me than I have jump in. I'm prepared for both. But now here is the issue. I'm like, guys, if somebody wants to help you, do not shag them away. Just say, if you don't need their help, say, guys, stay right there. Please stay right there. That way I'll know where I can get you if I need you. If you don't need them, fine. Then you go over later and say, thank you so much for stopping to help me out. I'm all set. But if you do need them, they're right there for you.
I've done the exact same thing in the context of firefighting, pulling up at some giant fire, trying to get a whole bunch of hoses and a whole bunch of gear off the truck in record time. And somebody offered to help, and I was very happy to accept their help. But it's win-win. Now that guy's got a great story for the bar later. Well, the building burned to the ground, but he got to do something cool, and I, got to get that task done 10 seconds, 15 seconds faster.
You're empowered. What does empower mean? To give power. When somebody offers to help you out, all right, and then you say, all right, I would love your help, boom. Even if you don't, please, I need you right there. Also, then I would empower them like, listen, this is what happened over here. I'd give them knowledge and understanding as much as I possibly can. You know, there's one city that had a big meeting, and it was this was a black gentleman who was a council person, and he stopped to help somebody, and they were like, oh, so keep moving. Now, he says, you know what, guys, this is not a race issue. He goes, I just tried to help one of my fellow city workers. And he was 100% correct. So that's why it's almost like learn to use it to your advantage, because you are creating allies more than anything else. Say, oh, thank you so much for doing that for me, because now you have an ally, somebody that's going to substantiate maybe what you did correct. So, yeah, it's almost like we have to get rid of the move and keep moving. Say, folks, you stand over here right now, and I'll let you know what's going on.
Okay, obviously, for the majority of people, their communication skills can be improved just like their physical skills can be improved, right? Like, you can take most people and make them a better fighter. You can take most people and make them a better communicator. Do you think there are some people who are irredeemable or like incredibly... You must run into people who are just incredibly resistant or incredibly hard to teach either of those skills, either the verbal skills or the physical skills. And what do you do then?
Well, we know the adage. I mean, you can bring a horse to water, and you can't force him to drink. So when I start my classes first, I start off the first whole 45 minutes to an hour about the value. See, we will not be able to learn and retain anything until we see value of it. That is like a firefighter or a martial artist. For me, if you're going to teach me a technique, normally you show me it first. Oh, so now I see the value of what I want to invest my neurological brain waves to try to retain. So when we teach officers, say, guys, anger management is 101. Say, I'm going to show you if this does not work, if you do not try to buy into this, how it's going to use you in litigation. So it's up to you. So you have to show them the value. For example, if you, well, it's bullshit. Oh, you think so, huh? So do you want to be in litigation when the attorney goes, matter of fact, officer, this is not your first time, isn't it? You have the same complaint on 17 different occasions, rude, discourteous conduct. So you've been doing this on a regular basis. I said, see, they're going to use it. I said, that's the reason. So we start off by teaching the value of why. We just talked about one. I start off the very first thing. It's going to protect you by treating people with courtesy and respect pays dividends. And I give case after case after case. Here's a good one if I'll share with you real quick. Officer who was a big guy, he goes, you know, Kev, he goes, I arrested this kid. He's a big guy. He goes, as you can tell, I'm a big guy. Yeah, I'm looking up to him. Yeah, I can see that. I said, listen, pal, you got a burglary, but it's second degree, so it's kind of serious. I got to bring in, you know. He goes, then we'll talk about inside and see what we can do. Now, if that's okay, I want you to turn your hands back. I got to handcuff you. Just polite, procedural, do the whole thing. He handcuffs the guy. So now he's driving in. So this cop, I think, was 6'3". The guy was 6'5", 6'6". 2 giants. So he goes, 17, I'm on my way in. Next thing you hear the radio, 18, I'm on my way over there. 42, give me a few more seconds. 10-4, I'm on my way. Roger that. You still there? The radio starts going crazy. So the guy leans over from the back and says, you don't know who I am, do you? The officer turns around. No, I'm sorry, I don't. He goes, well, they said I'm an enforcer for one of the outlaw motorcycle gangs, which I won't say right now, but they said I'm an enforcer for the outside motorcycle gang, outlaw. And he goes, and the reason I didn't give you any problems because you treated me with such a gentleman. So the guy wipes his forehead and he goes, whew, thank God for that. You don't know who you're dealing with, you know? So you can give these stories and anecdotes. We all learn through anecdotes as firefighters, as police officers, as business people. So you might get these people. And unfortunately, they don't survive in the career very long. But it's teach the value of why we have to learn anger management control, because nobody handles the variety of calls that police do. From officer, I don't know what my daughter, I think she's using drugs. Officer, I want this guy arrested right off the bat. Officer, this son of a... I said, nobody handles a variety of calls. I said, so you have to understand why anger management has to be taught within our arena too. You know, a judge sitting behind a big bench, oh, they have no problem saying officers should have thick skin out there in the street. Oh, so you can call an officer a piece of... But you, Your Honor, you can't say 2 words without you wanting to throw them in jail. But they're out in the street in a matter of all kinds of hectic situations. But you're sitting in your bench saying they have to have thick skin.
Now, one sort of, I don't know, trope is maybe the wrong word, but one thing that you hear a lot is, yeah, back in the day, they used to hire cops who could kind of handle themselves. But now, if you have any kind of history of physical confrontation, you're never going to get hired. So now they're just hiring a bunch of pansies, and these people don't know, you know, one end of a fist from the other. They've never done any drugs ever, so they don't know how to recognize people who are on drugs. And I kind of have one story that speaks a little bit to that. I went to this MMA training session that Eric Paulson hosted in Seattle, and a bunch of new recruits for one of the local police departments came out. I think there were about 10 people. So I got to, you know, do some basic clinching and some basic sparring, just, you know, like pushing and pulling on a person with all 10 of them and I swear to God, 8 of them had no physical kinesthetic sense at all, right? It's like, what, I should put my feet apart so that I'm harder to push. 2 of them, one was a little chick who just was super combative and super feisty, and you know, if you pushed her, she wouldn't fall over. And the other guy was this big bodybuilder, so he had, you know, knew how to hold weight up in space. But the remaining 8 of them, it was like I was dealing with a bunch of people who never played flag football, and it was just starting at such a low point physically that I was thinking driving home after that, I was going, man, if I was this guy and I had any kind of situation, I'd be pulling up my gun, my taser, and my pepper spray all at once, because the odds of me being able to de-escalate this by laying hands on someone are 0.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I don't have any data pertaining to that. I do hear a lot of significant anecdotes pertaining to it by different academy instructors that they're saying they have to teach a significant amount of individuals that, if physical confrontation, verbal confrontation could be very, very foreign to them. And that's, you've got the academia world trying to push the fact that they should not be taught in a militaristic style. Well, there's got to be a balance of both. And there has to be a balance of both. But, yeah, you have to teach people that have really no physical capabilities or skills, and it does become a challenge.
Taking us back to the idea of inoculation, which is kind of what we started with here, that you've got a limited window of time to take these people, develop the basic physical skills, the basic verbal skills, how to integrate it all, inoculate them against stress so they can still be using their brain. It's a high bar to clear. I don't envy your task.
It's almost this way. You know, I was on CNN not too long ago, and normally I turn them down because they want to ask you, oh, what about this? They want to show you a 20-second clip, you know, not even a 20-second, like an 8-second clip, and then a big discussion about it. So I said, you know, so normally I'm like, no. I said, I'm not going to make a comment on videos. I said, anybody who makes an assessment on a videotape alone normally is incompetent and negligent. And of course, politicians seem to be able to do that relatively quickly. But anyway, The use of force analysis is not to be determined by what a video shows you, as it's got nothing to do with the officer's perception at that particular point in time. So on CNN, I said, you got to use this term 3 times. You said officers are highly trained, highly trained, highly trained. I said, you quantify that for me. Well, what do you mean? I said, no, what do you mean? I said, because you said it 3 times. I said, let's get to it. If you have a young guy or young lady, but we'll say a young guy, that he wants to go to high school and he joins the wrestling team as a freshman, then makes it again as a sophomore, and then as a junior, and then a senior. So now he's a high school wrestler all 4 years, and he graduates high school. I said, how long do you think it'll take the average officer to catch up to his training? Well, I don't know. I said, never. I said, with 70 hours of basic training, and that throws everything in there, baton, handcuffing, OC, hand-to-hand. I said, so a high school wrestler walks out of high school, and a police officer will never come up to that level of training in 25 years, based on the average.
Because there's a lot more to do than train all day. It's not like you're, you have the luxury of being in a full-time MMA camp.
No, but we should take your model, fire department's model a little bit. There are ways to do it, to be able to say, okay, like, oh, Kev, I got 8 hours. I said, all right, Chief, give me 4 2-hour blocks then. Every other month, give me 2 hours with them. We can get a lot done in 2 hours. At least we can do a takedown or even 2 in 2 hours. But then I come back in another month and a half, another 2 hours. And then another month, 2 hours. Another month and 2 hours. We know as martial artists that skill is developed by repetitiveness, not immersion. So you just can't teach them one block of 4 to 8 hours for retention. Give them 2, 2, 2, and 2. That for you learn it, you leave it, you come back to solidify it. Learn it, leave it, solidify it. So there's ways that we can do it and keep within the same budget frame. But we have to make it at a regular basis, not just this once a year, check off the box.
Yeah, I mean, in the fire department, we have the luxury of, if we're not going, typically at the beginning of the day, we'll say, okay, what are we going to do? There's usually some training, there's some, maintenance, got to go do some inspections. But usually there's, what are we going to do for training? That's just kind of a regular part of a regular day. I'm not saying it happens every single day. If you get hammered by calls, if you got to go on some giant municipal parade or something, the best laid plans of mice and men go to hell. But the fact that it's kind of the default for what you're going to do on a shift is a luxury that, you don't have. Because I suppose the default for your average cop is to be out on patrol.
You're 100% correct. But it's almost like that's just saying, well, that's the way it is. Yeah, I know that. You better start changing. It's almost like we could do a paradigm shift. Let's talk history for a second. I said, I do this. All right, guys. You mentioned the Thracians for a second. I said, who are one of the most fierce Greek warriors of all time? Oh, the Spartans. I'm like, yeah, who'll beat them then? Persians? No. I said, the Thebes beat them in the Battle of Leuctra. I said, you know why? Because the Spartans never changed the way they fought. They fought in phalanxes 10 and 12 wide, 10, 12 deep. Well, the Thebes hit them with a super phalanx, 25 wide, 25 deep. They hit him in the center by the sacred band of brothers, bound by homosexuality, most fierce warriors of all time. And on the right, they hit him with cavalry. After that battle, the Spartans never regained rule. And then Philip of Macedonia, right? And then his son is Alexander, who was probably one of the most brilliant generals. Well, then Alexander dies, right? So what are we going to do? Now Roman wants to fight us. Well, the Greeks, it's good enough for Alexander, good enough for us. That's when Rome took over and beat them.
Using a more flexible legion formation.
Yes, and start to adapt and modify. A paradigm shift is not just, okay, let's all go to communication training. It's a matter of look where we're getting stung. It's almost like, guys, think about running a professional team. Look at the game tapes. Give the officers training for the game they're about to perform. Not because you think they should be doing this. We're playing Boston. Well, he throws 75% of sliders. Yeah, but we're going to train in fastballs because, we can get a fastball. No, look at the data. That kind of stuff. We really have to change the way we do it.
I suppose ultimately it gets driven by litigation. If the police department gets sued enough times for not doing something, they're eventually going to start changing how they do it just to avoid getting sued.
Oh, because mandates, they might mandate that you have OC training, mandate that you have baton training, mandate that you have use of force training, but no mandates that you have physical control skills. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's funny how the tail sometimes wags the dog, but that's the situation that we're left with. All right. So if anybody of my audience is a law enforcement officer or a peace officer, how can they get more of your stuff?
Go to lockuppolicetraining.com.
Okay. You've also published a book, haven't you?
I have not published a book. You see articles and stuff like that. No, I know what I haven't.
Oh, I thought you had. Sorry. Right, publish a book then.
That's what my big question is, and that's another one my buddy Dave goes, Kev, where's your book coming out? When's your book coming out? I said, Dave, I don't know how you do it on the road. I mean, I'm on the road all the time, and I don't know how you do it, but he's a brilliant guy. I am not. So sooner or later, we're working on it.
Ghostwriter. Just make them listen to every interview you've ever done. But, okay, so lockuppolicetraining.com, and you're retired now, but you're spending most of your time on the road working with different departments?
Yeah, well, with this, the program, what's made us so successful since 2006, it's designed by law enforcement, for law enforcement. We teach everything from de-escalation, communication, integrated with tactics. We have lockup, arrest, and control. We have, female enforcers. We have ground combatives. Deadly force, executive use of force levels. So it's an entire system, and it's worked out very well because it's proven to work for the average officer. Me and you, Steph, who love martial arts and combative, do it all the time. It's not designed for us. It's designed for the average guy or gal that can do at least a few hours and at least come out with one or two things that they can take somebody down with and build upon that.
Yeah, working with the hand you're given.
Exactly. Know the strategies. The key to victory is strategy, strategy, strategy. Almost like don't be a Spartan on a hard line there with your shield. Think like Napoleon, Rommel, Pat, and Alexander. For example, here real quick, I'm not going to go with you. I don't care. You're not going to arrest me for DWI. Listen, man, you're twice my size, bud. Come on. I'm not going. Hey, would you be okay to drive in maybe 10 minutes? Would that work? Yeah. 752, get me another unit. I don't know. I'm just kind of worried about you, man. You sure you're okay to drive? That's the key. Not to try to fight someone twice your size. If you can, how to out-strategize them.
Well, let's just finish on a distinction that a lot of people don't understand, which is the difference between strategy and tactics. Because you've just talked about strategy, but tell us, just as we're wrapping up here, the difference between strategy and tactics, and give us an example of what a strategy might be and a tactic might be.
All right, that's a good one there. Now, strategy is a Latin term, strategos, meaning the view of the general. All right? The strategy is the view. What do I use to obtain? The tactic is what I use to fulfill my overall strategy. All right? So, for example, my strategy would be, okay, this guy's twice my size. If I throw hands with him, chances are he's got the high ground, he's got greater mass, it's not going to work. So my strategy was use tactical deception. So that's tactic one. Listen, you sure you okay to drive in 10 minutes then? Well, yeah, okay. Well, just give me 10 minutes, all right? That's a tactic. The strategy is to be able to stall, obtain backup. Now backup arrives. Oh, listen, man, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go with this. But now I have two. So the strategies are learning how to get the tactical high ground, not just trying to, you're under arrest, you got to go. No, slow things down. Take a deep breath, get the high ground, come back. Here's another quick one, Steph. It's almost like you pull over a car. 1, 2, 3, 4, get out. Come on, man, what are you doing? Every cop says the same thing. Draw the gun, get out of the car. No, man, they got superior numbers than you do, all right? Use strategies, tactically relocate. Hey, listen, guys, I just got another radio call, but next time I'm going to give you a ticket, slow it down. All right, so now the strategy is to let them go, get more power. Units 4, 6, 8, and 12, I need to pull this car over. I had 4 subjects get out with no reason at all. 10-4, 15 on my way, 17, woo! You all pull them over and then take them out again. That's the difference between strategies and tactics.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this chat. I found it really interesting, and I wish you the best of luck with your teaching and traveling. You're doing good work, it looks like.
Well, thanks so much for having you on your show, and I hope to talk with you again.
That would be lovely.
All right, pal.
Podcast listeners, if you found this interesting or useful or entertaining, please pass this episode on to somebody else in your social circle or in your training circle. Surely there's somebody else out there who would also find it interesting. This is the way the podcast grows. It's an organic growth by people like you passing it on to their friends and the people that they know. I really, really appreciate this kind of sharing. So thank you so much in advance, and good luck with your training.